What made you realize you're old? Whenever I have to enter my birth date in a drop-down menu, you see me scrolling, I'm hating somebody trolling, trying to tell me that I'm past age 30. That music's too loud. Everything seems to be an act of letting go. I was reading Rolling Stone at the doctor's office and realized I hardly knew any of the bands on the Billboard Woon singles list. 90s music to my kids is like what 60s music was to me. I almost fell over when a local radio station called songs from the 80s the golden oldies.
No. The golden oldies are the 50s, 60s.
80s, 90s, and now it's different when it no longer means 2010. What did they replace the now with these days? The aughts? They still just say now. I'm wondering when the cutoff will finally be. It's been now for 24 years. That's not now anymore. That's old enough to rent a car. Practically, it's easy to think that, but music and culture in general are very different now. The charts aren't the cultural staple they used to be. Radio isn't the arbiter of taste anymore. People consume music very differently, and it's more about what's in Netflix series than it is what's happening in any real-world fashion scene. Album culture is more or less non-existent too. It's not like you generally get 2 or 3 hit singles from an LP and then tour the world. Streaming has made music sales a matter of wonders who get the bulk of the pie and the rest, and the successful touring bands are either behemoths or just into the lifestyle. You don't make money from music like you used to, and it's much more about a strong image and media profile than it is music or message. Culture has become much more disposable across the board. Personally, I've got to the stage where I feel like I'm hearing about a revolving door of recently deceased up and coming rappers with weird names, but I think it's less that I'm out of touch and more that the media loves to hype a tragic story and there's no common culture that everyone tapped into anymore. Same with watching the Grammys. Like, who are these people? I was explaining something to a young co-worker and went, the band, the Presidents of the United States of America, blank stare. The one with the song that goes moving to the country, gonna eat a lot of peaches. She looked at me like I was insane. Asked a young relative what music she was into, thinking I would be able to impress her with all I know about the cool bands. She listed quite a few, and I had never heard of a single one. Instantly humbled. My everyday routine: come home from work, watch Wheel of Fortune, look at the newspaper and sit outside, weather permitting, to watch the birds and squirrels. If that doesn't mean I am old, then nothing does. When I started mixing cornflakes with Frosted Flakes because Frosted Flakes alone was too fucking sweet. 7-year-old me would be shocked at old me. The first time the barber asked if I wanted my eyebrows trimmed. First time this happened to me, the woman, a friend of my wife's, didn't even ask. It was so quick and in 2 completely fluid motions that it didn't dawn on me until later what she'd done, as well as the age implications. But I did sit there and think, guess that makes me old. Your wife totally put her up to that. Viggo Mortensen is now older than Ian McKellen was when he played Gandalf in Fellowship. Holy shit. I am only now starting to realize how long ago the Locke movies were made, and I was not a kid when they were made either. I was actually a new homeowner by then. Tell us another story, Grandpa. I'll have you know, back in the day, I was working the night shift at the I2 sweatshop, trying to make that .com money, having to drive my black 92 Honda Civic hatchback up hill both ways. The glorious days when people actually sometimes made money on stock options. One day I am asleep and my wife bursts in flustered and clutching her skirts. She informs me that the local watch had informed her that musketry had been detected in a townhouse nearby. A rapscallion had apparently barricaded himself in his house and was giving the poor constables the worst time. She told me that the upstanding police officer had told us to flee for our own safety until the ruckus had passed. We resolved at that time to take my trusty steed to see the movie that everyone in the village was talking about. That was the day that, while half asleep, I decided to see The Fellowship of the Ring in an honest-to-goodness movie theater, just like they used to have. Of course, back then, although the movie was in full color, the world was in black and white, so we couldn't appreciate it as much as you youngsters could today, but it still did not disappoint. Anyway, where was I? Who are you again? What a nice person you are. I think I'll take a nap. Music that I listened to as a kid being played on the oldies radio station. When I heard 50 Cents in Day Club jamming on the older station, I just about fell out of my chair and broke my hip. I had a rental car that only tuned into one radio station with no Bluetooth. The station it tuned into was a hip-hop one that was playing classics from the early 2000s. The hosts were talking about how these songs were released before they were born. That one hurt. At 44, I don't feel old, but when I'm going to do something now, a days I think about it if I could get hurt. In 45. My mother's backyard has a 275-foot hill in the back. As kids, we would sled down it, standing up, backwards, on someone's shoulders. At high speeds, you name it. We would end up smashing into the side of the house, laughing. I took my 7-year nephew up the same hill to sled, and my first thought was, oh my God, this is terrifying. I could really get hurt. I had to crawl back on all fours to get down. Crawling back on all fours must have been a real moment for you. Oh, it was. And it was all captured on a cell phone camera, courtesy of my laughing. Off, mother! I fell on ice not long ago. I was around a large group of people. On the way down, everyone had the sharp intake of breath and a look of terror. While on the ground, I was the only one laughing. That's when I realized, though I may not feel old, other people know I am. This gave me a chuckle. Early 40s and my wife asked if I'd like to go try snowboarding. Paraphrased, sounds fun, but to be honest, I'm currently enjoying my relatively injury-free lifestyle. I've been through some pretty gnarly injuries, and I'm tired of them. Doing nothing became my favorite thing to do on the weekend. This is a common conversation with my husband and I. Do we have to do anything this weekend? I don't think so. Oh, thank God. We always end up doing some responsible shit anyway. I guess we've always been old. I've always identified with this Calvin hobby strip. Tups, hope tups, dups, comics, Calvin and Hobbes 1980-88. Calvin and Hobbes reference instantly qualifies you as old. God damn it, lol. I own the entire collection. This started for me in my mid-20s though. I've probably saved tens of thousands of dollars by not going out. All it cost me was my youth and all my friends. Good deal. When celebrities would come on late night shows and they looked so much older, then I would think I guess I do too. Or that you know all the celebrities that die. I remember celebrity deaths to me for years were just always random people that might as well have been from ancient Rome for how well I knew of them and how old they were. Now every celebrity death is like, what? She died, but she was just in that movie. But then you remember that for you, just in that movie was a movie 30 years or more ago sometimes. I recently saw a Reddit post about things that were popular 25 years ago, and I thought about the 80s until I saw a comment that pointed out that we are talking about 1998. I also then realized that I am older than 25. I also recently used the phrase 20 years ago when I was talking to a friend. That hit different. Born in 83, the 60s seems like a crazy long time before my time, but 1969 was 14 years before I was born. That's like 2009 till now. The song 1979 by Smashing Pumpkins is closer to the year 1979 than it is to our current time, and not inconsiderably so. Released in 1995. The difference between today and 1985 is longer than the difference between 1985 and 1955, which is the Back to the Future jump. Meanwhile, Harrison Ford is 80. I was browsing a thrift store a few years ago. An Arca wooden console TV caught my eye because we had an identical one growing up, so I checked it out for fun, read the back of it and everything. A while later, as I was standing in line beside the TVs, a kid behind me points to the wooden console one and goes, "Mom, look at that ancient TV. It was made the same year I was born." I've been a gigging musician for over 30 years, and in the last 10, those late nights just started killing me. You know what's a totally not fun game to play with your younger co-workers? Asking them what cartoons they grew up watching, asking them where they were on 9/11 is also a good one. This brings a story to mind. My husband is in tech and was chatting with a couple of colleagues. He asked them how they weathered the 2008 tech crunch, and they both just stared. One guy said, "I think that's when our age hit us." Ima hit you again. I was 4 in 2008, but now I'm an adult. When 30 seems like just a kid. When my mom moved into my mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall, I'd become my mother after all, haha. I did not understand this at first and thought it was a cool concept for a horror story. My partner will occasionally take a picture of me when I look just like my mum and send it to me because he thinks it's cute and it mortifies me. Eyeglasses propped on top of my head, peering at my phone, wearing a soft cardigan. God damn it. Both parents have died and their siblings are also gone. The big one there is when one of your contemporaries, people you grew up with, old schoolmates, relatives in your generation, etc., dies, and it's really sad, but not a horrific tragedy of someone being taken too early. My grandfather lived to be very old, and he got used to that, for better or worse, so that sometimes he'd say things that were kind of shocking, but routine for him, like I used to have a lot of friends. They're all dead now. My grandpa, 93, says stuff like this all the time. He talks about how everyone he knows is now dead, and he's just waiting for his turn. It's so damn sad. As sad as it is, I'm sure it makes it a bit easier to accept death when almost everyone that was alive when you were young and growing up is gone and a whole new group of people have replaced them. Everyone you ever looked up to, most of your friends, most of the people you love. I recall my grandmother, living into her 90s, only had one friend left, and they would call each other every couple of weeks. Such a horrible race. Either you lose and die, or you win and all your friends are gone. My check knee light turned on. Get that looked at before it becomes a check, lower back light. I am 66. My father had 9 brothers and sisters. Out of those 20 sibling spouses, I have 2 aunts left. They are both in their 90s. I've lost 2 older brothers and a bunch of cousins. My grandkids are starting to become adult. The problem with growing older, you can't stop thinking about growing older because there are all of these reminders. Even though I'm pretty sure part of me is still, and will forever remain, a 14-year-old boy. When I discovered my sciatic nerve, when I gave dating sites a try and found that the people my age were old-looking, one of my favorite lines from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is when Frank goes on a date with an old high school girlfriend. After only a few minutes into the date, he tells her it will never work because she's too old. She counters, "Frank, I'm 2 years younger than you." Frank, exactly. I was watching Derry Girls and thinking, finally, they cast actual teenagers in a show about teenagers. They were all over 25 and one of them was 31. Spent my 30th birthday itching to go home and take my new cordless vacuum cleaner for a spin. It reminds me of when I was at a store and thought to myself, no, I shouldn't buy that video game. I've already treated myself to a leaf blower today. This brings back a memory of back when I was a young and single dude in the military. I had overheard a couple older guys having an enthusiastic conversation about which hardware store had the best deal on garden hoses. I thought to myself, just shoot me if I ever get that excited about a fucking hose. But last week, I got a new hose on sale. It was so good, I bought a second hose for the fresh water connection on my radio. When the supermarket started playing the music, I listened to in high school edit.
I will die for the golden rip my inbox.
Getting annoyed when they rearranged the grocery store. Is that Smashmouth I hear? When all of my fellow welding apprentices at work started calling me their shop mom. Hello, shop mom. I'm work dad. One of kids stopped herself mid-sentence when she was referring to me as elderly. I'm not even 40 yet. I'm not even 40 yet. I threatened to date her mom and ground her. I threatened to date her mom and ground her. This is hilarious, and I love it. Wait a minute. Let me get my glasses and put the main light on to read this properly. A bunch of things, low. Bent down to pick up my 20-low pew pup and threw my back out. Seeing athletes get drafted into the NFL that were born after 2000. Also watching guys I saw get drafted, now retiring, wanting peace and quiet instead of parties. Getting excited about grocery or furniture shopping. When kids referred to the 90s or the late 1900s, don't want to confuse people with the good old 1890s kids. When adults don't remember 9/11, because they weren't born yet. 2 words. Grey pubes. I'm at the age when I can't tell if the grey on my balls is due to a loss of pigment in my pubes or just an accumulation of dust from dragging them around on the fucking ground. My balls are distinguished. Thank you very much. discovered I had a favorite spatula. My balls are distinguished, thank you very much. Butt problems. There, I said it so you don't have to. Guy at the liquor store looked really quick at my license. I said that was fast. He said it starts with 19.